Hi, this is Pam Worth with Hello Health, Encourage Your Wellness podcast. Today I have Jake Messier. He's an MBA, former Marine, seasoned nonprofit marketing professional living with stage 4 metastatic male breast cancer. Originally diagnosed in 2023 and bravely shares his journey on TikTok and Instagram at the guy with stage 4 breast cancer. Jake, welcome. And
Thank you.
sorry that we're here under these circumstances, but it sounds like you're doing really, really well and providing a lot of education and hope for others.
Well, I try, it's sort of taking the lemons and making all the lemonade out of it, right? And that's what we're trying to do, right? If I can help people feel a little bit less afraid on their journey, then that's sort of what we're doing.
So tell us a little bit about how you figured it out, kind of the steps you took,
Sure.
certain steps you would take again, not take again.
Well, one of the things that I try to, it's one of my mantras right out there is, and I think it's not any different than a lot of other breast cancer patients, right? And that's what I see myself at. I don't want to see myself as a separate male breast cancer patient, right? I want to be under the umbrella of breast cancer, right? So I was diagnosed in September of 23, but I think you need to go back to, and I don't really know the exact time, but it was March or April of that same year where I was putting on deodorant. And I literally said to myself, I felt a lump. And I said to myself, oh, that's weird. And I went on with my day, right? Because that's what guys do, right? Um, about a month went by and I noticed it was still there. And I was like, all right. And that went on for several months to the point where when Johnny, I'm sorry, when I decided my son-in-law's name is Johnny. When I decided that I was going to be going into my primary care physician, and my son-in-law was encouraging me to go because he's like, "Hey, this thing isn't going away." Um, I went in, and my primary care doc basically said it could be any of these things. It could be. He listed off about 10 things that it could be, none of which were breast cancer, by the way. But he had the foresight to send me for a mammogram. And so I decided to I went and I was like, this is weird because I'm going for a mammogram, right? And it's just I just don't think that guys are in that mode, right? You hear all the time women should be going for mammograms, get your pre-screening, all that stuff. And it's never on any guy's radar to think about having this done, especially when somebody sends you for a mammogram, right? And they're trying to compress whatever breast tissue into the mammogram machine as much as they can. And they came back. And, I remember sitting there with a nurse who she has been in a million of these things, right? She has been and she's seen what cancer looks like and seen what cancer not looks like, right? When it comes up on these machines. But she can't tell me that I've been diagnosed, right? The radiation oncologist needs to come in and read it and then tell me. So this is my first time seeing a scan. And so I'm looking at it and I'm turning it. I don't know what I'm now, 3 years in, I can read scans all day long. But at that time, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. And I looked at her and she said, um, are you okay? I said, yeah. I said, can you tell me? And she goes, I can't tell you. I said, okay. And she goes, but what I can tell you is that your life is going to start moving incredibly fast and incredibly slow all at the exact same time. So she wasn't telling me I had cancer because she can't, right? But she was telling me that I had cancer. And I can tell you nothing has been more to the truth than the past 3 years, seeming like it's only been about 4 days and seeming like it's been my entire lifetime. So, if you going back to your original question, what would I do different? Well, I don't think, and my entire life has become breast cancer now, but I don't think I knew in, let's say, March of 23 that guys could get breast cancer. I don't think I knew that fact because I think if I did, I don't think I would have gone right away, but certainly after a month or two, I would have been like, well, this is weird. Let me go in and get checked out. So to go back to your question, what would I do differently? Now, I would certainly not wait the 6 months that it took me to get in and see somebody. They say that male breast cancer is about 30% more fatal for men than it is for women. And largely it has to do with late diagnosis and late, all of these things. They're not catching these things early. And so the diagnosis leads to a worse diagnosis. I was misdiagnosed at stage two. I used to tell my story differently. I used to say, well, I went from stage two to stage three to stage four in like a year. And that's not how staging works or anything like that. My story now is I was misdiagnosed at stage two. I should have been diagnosed at stage three. And then that led to stage four. Um, it's sort of a funny, it's sort of a funny place to be, right? I live in this pink world, right? This breast cancer is the most researched, the most publicized, the most talked about of all the cancers, right? It's the pink ribbon is a massively successful marketing campaign. I'm a marketing exec by trade, and when you look at the top marketing campaigns that's ever existed, Coke, Pepsi, Ford, the pink ribbon is right up there with one of the, garnering billions and billions of dollars. Yet to date, there has been largely zero, and when I say zero, it's really about zero money spent on the differences between male and female breast cancer. So there's a long way to go. There's a lot of stuff to go on, but it's a funny place to be.
Yeah. So what sort of treatments did they put you through? Did you go through genetic
Sure.
testing? How is that potentially different from what they would put women through? Like, for instance, my mom had breast cancer,
Yeah.
um, and then she's stage four metastatic ovarian cancer, and so I've
Yeah.
learned enough to be
You've
dangerous.
gone down the road. Yep. You've gone down the road. Um, what was your question? Sorry.
So, what sort of treatment, genetic
Oh
testing,
yeah. Okay.
they put you through, and then does that differ from what they would do for a woman versus male?
Well, it's funny. I had the genetic testing and I don't have any markers in my system. Now that can mean one of two things. A, that I truly don't have any genetic markers, and mine is caused environmentally. Or what it could mean is that they haven't found the male breast cancer genetic marker yet. That's the other part of this, right? Um, and that goes into conversations I have with my oncologists pretty regularly. I go to Dana-Farber Cancer Institute here in Boston. I live in Western Massachusetts, so it's about an hour and a half for me to get there. And when I go there, I go to the only male breast cancer department in the world. It's the only one. There are other hospitals and cancer centers that may have a male breast cancer department that may be clinical, but Dana Farber is the only one that's clinical and research. And so my oncologist, happens to be the head of the male breast cancer department at Dana Farber. So in theory, Dr. Jose Pablo Leone, that's my doctor, he should be at the forefront of cutting edge for male breast cancer. And he tells me all the time, Jake, I don't know how to treat you any differently than I treat my other female patients because there is nothing ever been done to scientifically prove whether there is to treat it differently or not. So I get treated in the same way that women get treated. I went through 20 weeks of chemo. I went through an initial mastectomy, but they didn't get clear margins the first time. And so they went in for a second time, and then complications led to a third surgery. So I had 3 surgeries overall. And then that led to radiation. And I've now gone through 2. I had my first time when I went for radiation, it was my entire right chest wall. It was this whole area that was radiated. And then when I became metastatic and it settled into my bones, it landed in my hip bone. So just this past December, I had another round of radiation to go after the one in my hip bone. And we just had that PET scan on Tuesday. And we got the good news that the tumor is either dead or dying in my hip. So that's, it's all good news. But at the same time, like getting back to your original question, they don't treat me any differently, or any male, that they treat at Dana-Farber or anywhere else. There's about 30 men that are in the Dana-Farber male breast cancer clinic. And, I know guys that come in from Ohio to go to Dana-Farber, right? There's people coming from all over sort of this side of the country to go to Dana-Farber, and there's only 30 of us there. And so it's a very small group. And we oftentimes share information. How are you being treated? Is there anything different that you're getting that I'm getting? And largely, I could have that same conversation in a female only breast cancer group, and my treatment would be exactly the same.
Is there anything that you would like to do differently or have explored or curious about? Anything that you have as thoughts for others,
Well,
maybe what they do?
it's funny because uh, we have certainly gone down the traditional medicine route, right? We've certainly gone down the chemo and the surgery and the radiation and the traditional cancer treatments, right? But my wife and I um, also are a strong believer in Chinese medicine. We're a strong believer in healing energy and crystals and these. And listen, skeptical Jake from about 5 years ago would have laughed all of this off the planet, right? I'm not that person. But in 2019, I was almost 300 pounds. I just had a stroke in 2018. I was in really bad shape, completely stressed out, completely not in a good place in my life. And so in 2019, December of 2019, I decided to make a change. I decided to lose some weight, but I had been dieting and on and off my entire life. But this time I decided to actually take aim at what I thought was causing the weight gain, which was, emotional PTSD. It was a lot of things. I was a Marine for 10 years, a lot of things from my childhood and everything else. So I spent 2 years in deep emotional therapy, coming to grips. I turned over every emotional stone in my soul. And during that process, I started to lose weight. Now, if you remember COVID, March of 2020, I'm making this decision in December of 19. In March of 2020, COVID comes along, right? But I'm like, well, talking about making lemonade out of lemons, everybody else was out there walking. So I was like, well, me too. And I decided, and I walked off 120 pounds, and I kept it off through yoga and meditation. And yoga and meditation started my journey into Reiki, which brought me into all kinds of other things, healing crystals. And like I said, I was not that guy. I was not the person that was going to be like, well, let's see what this does or see what this does. And as well, we also decided to go with a naturopath doctor as well. So we have my Dana Farber team, but we also have a naturopath doctor in Vermont who consults. She'll prescribe different supplements, herbs, medicines, stuff like that. She always consult with Dana Farber first, right? She's never gonna. I mean, she's an MD herself. I mean, she's not gonna do anything that's going to contradict the medications I'm taking. So, I certainly decided that I was going to go down the traditional medicine route, right? That was what I was going to do. But I was also not going to entertain other things that might help me on my journey. And I can tell you, I'm on 2 medications right now that cause extreme nausea and extreme diarrhea, right? It's terrible gastrointestinal stuff, right? And my naturopath doctor was like, hey, take some activated charcoal every day, and that might help you. And it has. So like this round of radiation has been so much better in terms of me being able to eat more than 2 or 3 things, right? I'm now up to like 8 or 9 things. But things like that, eating the activated charcoal, taking the activated charcoal every day, and things like that have helped me with my entire journey, right? I'm certainly going to complement it with my traditional medicine, but there's been all kinds of things, whether they be metaphysical or physical, that have helped me during my journey.
Yeah, and we've gone through that with my mom too. We've done a lot of both. And
Mm-hmm.
have you done any of the like high dose vitamin C IVs and any of the things that you may find in other parts of the world, like cell exchanges with like LAKs or dendritics or um,
I haven't, but I'm not opposed to any of them, right? I'm not opposed to any of those as long as Dana Farber signs off on it and says, "Look, this is not going to impact the stuff that we're doing." I don't have a, this thing right here. This sort of comes into my view when I'm doing podcasts. This is an infrared sauna that there is some talk that is really good for cancer patients. And so if I sit in here for 10 or 15 minutes a day, it's not hurting anybody. I'm sitting there on my phone. But if it's benefiting me at a cellular level, I'm going to do it. So,
yeah, like I got my mom one of those PEMF mats that you lay on it, and it's supposed to help get your cells back to whatever, the it's
right.
interesting. I think there's a lot out there that we may or may not, totally understand or think about.
100%. It's funny because you say things like that, and then I, my cancer journey has certainly opened up my eyes that my doctors and doctors in general, I used to put a lot of faith in the medical system, right, and the healthcare system, and in the knowledge that my team had gotten at medical school. And when they tell me all the time, they're like, "Yeah, we don't know." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, it happens all the time. And so I look at some of these other forms of treatment, right? Um, and there are some things that I'm willing to try, and there's probably some things I'm not willing to try, right? And that's fine. But I think being open to all kinds of things is really where um, you're going to get the most benefit and the most help on your cancer journey, right? And if you're just so stuck in one way or the other, right? Whether it's traditional medicine or going all the alternative meds, if you're not sort of mixing the two of those together, or at least having your people talk, it's probably not going to be the best outcome for you.
Yeah, well, one of the best things that, we've got the regular oncologist and the natural oncologist. And one of the best things the natural one said was, look, cancer is kind of like playing whack-a-mole. You can't get frustrated. It's just going to keep trying to come back. And so you got to hit it different ways.
100%.
Um, and you got to come up with a
Now,
whole bunch of different ways to come at it and try and get.
that's it's funny because when I'm in this funny point right now because it's the whack-a-mole thing, because when the spot of metastasis on my hip, that tumor, started growing, I was like, okay, well, now we have to go chase this one, right? And it took us almost a year to get that one under control, right? And so when my wife and I were on the phone with our oncologist the other day, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, they start off the conversation saying, "This is looking great, everything is going well." And I'm like, man, this is awesome. That's, I can sort of maybe be less crisis mode over the summer, right? And then she was like, "Oh, and then," and I'm like, "Oh," and that's the problem, right? There's not always, but in this case, I spend 10 months going after this tumor, finally get it taken care of, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we found this spot up here that we're not calling a tumor yet, but we'll have to wait for your next PET scan, but it's a spot of concern." So like, I'm just like, oh, like, spend all this time and energy and effort to get rid of this spot. And if the conversation had just ended with there, then yeah, my mind would be great.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, it's the end then that is killing us, right? Because now I'm just like, the notion of scanxiety, right? That notion that your upcoming scan causes a tremendous amount of anxiety in your body. That doesn't usually hit me till about a week or two before I go in for my scan, right? But the other day we scheduled my PET scan for the middle of July, which is 3 months out from this one. And I'm already anxious about it because of this thing in my chest, right? So I'm like, oh, this anxiety is going to last for 3 months. And it's not top of mind all the time, but that's the and then, right? There's always going to be something, and you do have to roll with the punches, right? Or you can get sucked down into the abyss, right? Those are the two, my wife is my primary caregiver, right? And she made a very cogent point one day. This was pretty early on and I say our journey because it's a collective journey. It's not just me going through this, right? It's everybody in the family. She made a very good point when I was severely depressed, not seeing any hope or anything. And she said, "I love you, but I cannot drown with you." And I was like, "Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to hear, right? If you're gonna drown, you're gonna do it on your own because I'm not gonna go down with you. I'm gonna throw you every life preserver. I'm gonna be out there and I'm gonna help you, but like I can't go down this path with you." And that's my support function. My support function at home is it's amazing, and I'm truly lucky and blessed to know that I have these people. It's not just my wife who's my primary caregiver. You know, my 16-year-old son who you know day 3 of his freshman year of high school, dad's diagnosed, right? And he has spent his entire high school, he's wrapping up his junior year. Talk about resilience. Talk about somebody that has had to bounce back. I mean, my high school years were tough enough as it was without my dad having terminal cancer, right? We go to that, and then my daughter, who's 31, they lived in Texas when I first got diagnosed, and her husband and the 3 grandkids, her kids, they sold their home in Texas and they moved in with us. We have this big, beautiful home here in Western Massachusetts, and so we're a multi-generational home. So literally having the grandkids, it's not just a once a week we're going to go see the grandparents. It's every day they're coming home from school and we're eating dinner together. And medicine comes in all forms, and it's not just the pill you take every day.
Yeah, it's a real blessing. Yeah, my
It
mom,
is.
a couple of years in was super frustrated. She's like, when is this thing finally going to go away? And I said, you need to stop thinking like that and start thinking of, I'm going to die with it, not from it. And
Mm-hmm.
stop thinking about how we're going to get every single tumor because I don't know that we're going to get every single tumor. But they don't have
Mm-hmm.
to grow, they can just hang out. So,
Right. Sometimes just um being stationary, just static is
yeah.
good, right? Sometimes not progressing is the best thing for you.
Yeah, and that's where she's at. She's got stage 4, and she's had 90 days to live, going on 8 years. So it's I think there's
Right.
a path for everybody here, just to kind of live with it, and I can't imagine all the anxiety that goes with it. And I think that's the hardest part for people to deal with is how in the heck do you live day to day without thinking about it all the time?
Well, and that's where I've gotten into my platforms, right? That's where, as much as I am out there, and I know I'm helping people. I sort of I get I know I'm helping people because people reach out to me and tell me that I am. I had a mom the other day from Mississippi who said, "I was just diagnosed 6 months ago. I'm 31 years old," which is like that's heartbreakingly young. Like, come on. My daughter's 31 years old, and and she said, I'm laying in bed this morning and I'm just crying. I just got my son off to school and I just went back to bed and I'm crying because I just don't know. I don't know what to do. And she goes, and I found your page. And I was like, oh. And she said, and I went back and I was like, and I was liking videos from a year ago. And it's true. I mean, I was going back going, oh my gosh, like who's this person liking a video from it? Like, I don't even remember making that. And she was back there. She was way back in the archives. And she said, I watched about 100 of your videos. And I got the strength. You gave me the strength to get out of bed. And I wrote her back immediately. And I said, hey, I'm glad that you're out of bed. That's, that you, but I said, I didn't get you out of bed. You got yourself out of bed. I'm just a tool on the internet that you used. Like you got yourself out of bed. You got yourself out of that funk. You get yourself out of that depression. And so she wrote me back saying, no, thank you. And it was great. And then, the day before that, there was a guy, I'm at 50,000 followers amongst my Instagram and TikTok, right? And I know that, I'm very well aware that $50,000, 50,000 followers does not make an influencer. I'm very, very keen on that. However, I get a lot of a lot of feedback. And I'm at the point now where I can't answer everybody all the time, right? Any guy that reaches out to me that maybe, hey, I was just diagnosed, oh, I'm scared, I found a lump. Any guy that reaches out to me, I'm gonna make space for. I'm gonna, and I start off those conversations by saying, look, the odds are in your favor. I mean, it is 99% of breast cancer is women and 1% is men. The odds are in your favor that this is not breast cancer. And so I start off with that. Secondarily, go to your doctor and let them tell you that. Like, go to your doctor, and that's the next step. So, like, it's just um this with men in particular. There was this guy that reached out and he said, "Hey, I got breast cancer 12 years ago, and 5 people knew I had breast cancer: my wife, my kids, and my mom. Everybody else just knew I was sick or I had cancer or whatever." He goes, "I was too ashamed to ever say breast cancer." And he goes, "But I've been watching your videos for about a year now. And I just changed my Facebook profile to breast cancer survivor." Because he goes, "I've had this for 12 years. I'm in remission. I'm not getting scanned anymore." But he goes, "You made it seem a little bit normal for me to put that in my profile." And I'm like, that's great. I mean, and that's the thing that, along with men being diagnosed so late as a cause for the much more fatality, it is also very much about the emasculation. It is very much about living with a woman's disease. It is about every single brochure that you are handed, is written for she and her and women. And I go to Dana Farber, Boston being the most liberal city and the most liberal state and all the things, right? And when I walk into Dana Farber, I walk onto the Susan F. Smith um, Center for Women's Cancers. And I'm like, I belong on that floor. I have breast cancer. I belong on this floor. But yet, it is so pervasive that it is just this women's disease that a lot of guys have a really hard time getting over that. And when I say that, there's more anecdotal evidence that points to there are some men that choose not to go to treatment because it's so bad, right? Because everything in their treatment. When I woke up from my mastectomy, right, the OR nurses were trying to look out for me, and I give them all the credit. They were trying to help. They didn't put a surgical bind on me because they only had pink and blue, pink and flowers, and I was like, "Do you think I'm going to turn down a medical device because you don't?" I'm like, "Of course, put it on me, of course." And so, but that's how pervasive it is, right? And so there's a lot of guys with toxic masculinity that are going to choose to not be in that world, and it's going to kill them. And that's, there's just no other way to say it. And so if I'm the leading spokesperson in the US for male breast cancer, which apparently all signs are pointing to that I am, right? There's not too many of us. And if I'm the only one talking about it really at this level, then, you know, if I can tell people, hey, I can work on the toxic masculinity of the 2,800 guys a year that are going to get breast cancer, right? But it's way easier for you to paint your waiting room green. It's way easier for you to buy a can of yellow paint and not have a gendered waiting room and not have everything in your, everything that the packet that I received that's like, hi, you have breast cancer, right? Here's the packet, you know? Um, there was not one thing that said he in it, not one thing that was even, a they. It was all she, her, and and that's extremely difficult for a lot of guys to be in. I have zero issue with it. I wore pink all the time before I got breast cancer. It's not an issue with me, but I know that it's an issue with a lot of guys. And it's self-perpetuating, right? It's one thing for guys to feel that way. It's another thing for guys to be treated that way on a daily basis, right? I wanted to go to an in-person support group, right? Just to sit with other breast cancer survivors in a room, like an AA meeting or whatever. I'm going to go sit in a room and I'm just going to tell my story. But like, there's a certain catharsis to that. There's a certain, you know, healing that comes with sitting in a room and doing that. I'm online friends with hundreds, if not thousands, of other breast cancer people and been a part of their rooms. But sitting in a room in a hall is different. And this particular organization had a metastatic um, group and a regular breast cancer group. And I was like, well, that's funny. But I also know the reason for that. A lot of times when you have breast cancer, you're not invited to the you're not invited if you're metastatic, you're not invited to the regular breast cancer group. Which I was like, why? And it's because we represent everybody's worst fear. If you're stage 1, 2, or 3, right? And somebody with metastatic is in there, they represent everything that could go wrong with your disease. As if things aren't hard enough with cancer, having somebody with metastasis is harder. So I get that I can't go to the regular breast cancer group, sort of. But I was told when I inquired about joining, they told me I couldn't come. And it was because of my gender. It was because of my, because, and it was, I was angry. I was frustrated. It's just another line in a long line of events
Yeah.
that is just, you don't belong. You don't belong in this disease. And that's just another way of somebody telling you that.
Yeah.
And so you have to fight and claw for anything you get in this disease.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic that you're opening the conversation now and bringing people in. If people want to reach out to you or find out more, where should they go?
I am at the guy with stage 4 breast cancer. Like I said, I was a marketing guy. And so when all my clients would come to me and they'd be like, oh, what should we call our company? Should we have some crazy weird name or combine? I'm like, no, say exactly what you are. Like that's what you get rid of. And so literally it's at the guy with stage 4 breast cancer. It's a numerical 4. Um, and I'm there. I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram. And I also have the guy with stage 4 breastcancer.com, which this podcast will go on to. It houses all the podcasts that I'm on and that kind of a thing. It's also got more information for people to reach out to me and that kind of a thing.
Thank you so much, Jake.
Thank you.